it's hard to fix anxiety by changing your thoughts. And for a lot of you, you've probably been told this. Hey, change the way you think. Stop catastrophizing. Stop assessing everything as dangerous. Stop thinking anxious thoughts. And if you've been told this, you probably felt extremely gaslit by cognitive behavioral therapy. And I think most of us have felt gaslit by cognitive behavioral therapy at one point or another, because it essentially has this premise that says, hey, you'll feel better if you change your thoughts, which is sort of true. And there are a lot of really good components to cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm not going to just throw it away and say there's nothing useful there. There are. But the problem is it's making people feel worse sometimes, because they do have this like kind of gaslit feeling where it's like, well, if I could change my thoughts, I would have changed my thoughts. Like, I'm not trying to think anxious thoughts here and feel worse. And the reason for this is because it's actually really hard to intervene at a thought level with anxiety, because I actually think anxiety is more of a physical issue than a cognitive issue. And here's why. So when we feel anxious in our body. And if you've had anxiety, you know that there's physical sensations to anxiety, whether you have that like pins and needles feeling, whether you have it in your stomach, whether you feel like you can't quite like take a full breath all day, like you feel like you're shallow breathing. Like when you're having an anxious day, you know it, and you know it physically. And so when somebody comes along and tells you, hey, stop catastrophizing in your mind, stop thinking anxious thoughts, you're like, well, okay, but I still feel it. I still feel like something horrible is going to happen. And that's really what anxiety is. It's essentially an over-detection of threat. So we're assessing our environment and we're realizing, hey, this is dangerous and threatening. And then what's happening is that there is a hormonal, neurochemical cascade that happens as a result of threat detection. Therefore, physically, we feel the effects of that. And so physically, we feel something bad is going to happen. And we feel that in our body. Oftentimes, the way that I describe anxiety to people that maybe don't know what it feels like is that during the day, you sort of feel that feeling that you get when you're driving and someone almost hits you. Like that, oh my gosh, like out of nowhere. But you kind of low grade feel that all day. And that's what anxiety feels like to a lot of people. And so if someone comes along and tells you to change your thoughts, change the way you're thinking, it's almost impossible, because your feeling fuels your thoughts. And so if you feel physically in your body like something bad is going to happen, then it's really hard not to think thoughts that something bad is going to happen, because you feel it. You know it's going to happen because you feel it. You know you should be anxious because you feel it. You know that you shouldn't ask for a promotion because you feel like something bad is going to happen. And the problem is that doesn't necessarily mean something's going to happen that's bad. But it's really, really difficult to intervene cognitively when you feel in your gut that there's a danger. And that's why when it comes to anxiety, we need to intervene at the physical level. We need to change the feeling in your body. We need to make you feel safe, like the environment is safe, everything's okay. And that's when we can actually improve anxiety. So if you're someone that has done a lot of CBT or tried a lot of CBT exercises, and you're like, why am I not getting better? I feel actually potentially worse. This is why. Because anxiety is a cycle. And so we will feel anxious. And some days you probably know that sometimes you just wake up anxious and you have no idea why you're anxious. You just feel anxious. And then your mind starts to create hypotheses. It's like, am I anxious because my partner's mad at me? Am I anxious because something bad is going to happen at work? Am I anxious because I saw a video on climate change? I don't know. So you kind of start to think of scenarios and you start catastrophizing and you start thinking about the future and worrying about bad things that could happen. And that creates more feeling of danger in your body. And that feeling of danger creates more thoughts that kind of hypothesize on why you might be feeling that danger. And so it spirals and spirals and spirals. And intervening at the cognitive level doesn't help because you still typically have the feeling. It doesn't just like magically go away just because you thought some positive thoughts. It's still there. And that's why it's so difficult to treat the way that a lot of people are treating it this way these days, is that you can't really intervene at the cognitive level. Otherwise, people will feel like they're being gaslit. Because if we could just think our way out of anxiety, we would have done it already. And so if this sounds like what's been happening to you, I encourage you to schedule an intro session. We can talk about how you can actually feel better in your body so that you stop the cycle of anxiety and actually feel good again.